Winning Plays is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
Welcome in, Winning Plays podcast, back again. It's been a week since Marcus Smart has been traded, and we had an emergency pod in the aftermath, but this is the real emergency pod. This is the dust has settled. We're bringing in the big guns, bringing in the originators, Michael Pina of The Ringer, Rich Levine, formerly of the Big Three Winning Plays podcast, now superstars in their own right. Guys, we're here. We're a week out. This thing has been dissected inside out. It's great to see your faces, even though these are maybe not the terms we want to talk about it on. So I'm gonna throw the floor to you. Where do we start right now? Where do we feel a week after this deal, and what lies ahead for this team after such a, I guess, what surprising move, should we say? I don't know how we want to phrase this.
Can I just ask? Did you throw a parade? Did you pop a champagne bottle when you heard that Smart
right
was
there, Michael.
Getting traded? Was that the move?
That is unfair.
You're gonna have to start watching Grizzlies games just in case he misses a few in a row.
Listen, all I wrote about this leading up to it was all Malcolm Brogdon trades. I didn't write one Marcus Smart trade column because I thought we were at that point where it's like this just isn't happening.
Someone said that after the trade deadline. I think it was like we just went through, and I think it might have been Ryan Bernardoni. We just went through an entire trade deadline without one Marcus Smart rumor.
Right?
Like it seemed like a bridge to forever with the Celtics and with Marcus.
And then Malcolm Brogdon got hurt. They collapsed in the East Finals, and then everything got turned on its head. So I don't know.
Can I tell you a story about
Please.
the Marcus trade? So
yes.
Watching the drafts at home with my daughter, 8 years old, and I just mentioned something randomly about the trade, and then we're watching a few more minutes. She disappears into her room. Don't think much of it. At a commercial, a couple of minutes later, I walk by and she's just hysterically crying in her bed. And like 3 girls under 8, a lot of crying in our house. Normally, I can just brush it off. This seemed a little bit deeper. Sit down, like, what's the matter? She's like, can I talk to you in the other room? We have to walk in the other room, and she just breaks down in tears, and she's, his hair is not going to be green anymore. He's not going to be number 36 anymore. And I'm like, maybe he'll be 36. I'm trying to make it better. She's like, worst of all, I'm going to be rooting for the Grizzlies now, and you're going to be rooting for the Celtics.
Wow. Amazing.
I know. And like, I'm old and jaded. Like, we've seen Paul Pierce play in a different jersey. We've seen Tom Brady play in a different jersey. Like, it's shocking when someone gets traded, but like the whole, I don't know, the emotion has been drained out a little bit for me. I'm sorry to see Marcus go, but I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. But we all have that first moment in our fandom where we realize, like, these guys that we love.
Mm-hmm.
It's somewhat conditional. But I also said to her, like, I'm always gonna be a Marcus Smart fan. You're always gonna be a Marcus Smart fan. When the Grizzlies come and play the Celtics, we will root for, I think the first game back, I always root for the player. Like, I wouldn't mind if Marcus hit a game-winning shot for the Grizzlies against the Celtics in that game. But for me, that was a moment where, like, again, sometimes I can get a little down by how little I'm affected by this stuff at this point. But to see someone who's going through it for the first time and really, really, really go through it, it kind of hit me kind of hard.
Rich, you stole my thunder with that story, because that was exactly my reaction to the Marcus Smart trade. Me and your daughter, we had the exact same.
Your wife was playing the role of me.
Exactly, consoling me, sobbing in bed. I was pretty stunned. I'm not gonna lie, because like all day long you're seeing the Malcolm Brogdon rumors that are logical. I expected them to break up the trio of guards that they had for financial reasons more than anything. I thought, like, on the court it was fine and that they could win the championship as currently constructed, but the additional 2 years of salary, knowing that they wanted to bring back Jalen on a supermax extension, like, I just know that someone would have to go, and I was kind of thinking that it would be Malcolm for a variety of reasons, and the trade that they had with the Clippers and the Wizards made a lot of sense. And then like, you zoom out and the value that the Celtics got here is just like undeniably great, right? Like, they upgrade. Kristaps Porzingis is a better player, I think. I don't know if you guys agree. And I think it's debatable, but I think Kristaps Porzingis' ceiling as a player is like an all-star. Like that's and I don't
One
think
guy was
Marcus
an all-star, one
Smart's-
guy has never been an all-star.
Right.
Will never be an all-star.
Right. I think that
Ooh.
his ceiling, I get the hatred, just the
No,
venom.
that's not a
The
on.
venom.
Fair statement.
So you upgrade with a younger player, more expensive for sure, but a younger player, someone who is an archetype that Brad Stevens and before him Danny Ainge clearly coveted. I thought for all season long, like that they were just waiting to make the Lauri Markkanen trade, honestly, because like that's the type of player that they have always wanted. Like that's why they signed Danilo Gallinari. They just love bigs who are skilled, who can shoot. And they get one who's maybe the best of that type of player when healthy. And they get 2 first-round picks too. And I know that they, flip one of them into a second I guess like Jordan Walsh. And how many seconds did they get? Like 4
seconds,
additional,
so like five total seconds.
Yeah, which is valuable in the new CBA. It makes a lot of sense. So the value is just like undeniably, like if you're doing win-loss, whatever, how you want to grade trades, like the Celtics definitely got really good value and fundamentally changed like so much about their team and how they can play, particularly on the defensive end. And it's just going to be really fun, I think, to see how it all kind of shakes out. I guess like just B-Rob, like before you give your reaction to it, which is, obviously again, like popping champagne bottles and just dancing in the streets.
Please.
Do you think like they're not done here at all, right? Like,
no,
I feel like they need to add another ball handler. I know Peyton Pritchard's still on the roster. I would say that personally to me, like, is the biggest need right now. Like someone who can, create a little bit. I don't know what they're going to get, but someone who can handle the ball, make life easier for Tatum and Jalen, hit some threes. Like that's a guard like that, maybe with some size, is probably what they need still. But yeah, it was a stunner. And 9 years, 9 good years with Marcus, 9 great years.
It's a long time.
Yep.
it's a hell of a ride
In this league. But
It
so
really is.
B-Rob, we talk someone that not exactly what Pina was just describing, but like, what's the deal with Brogdon? Like, is he around? 'Cause I've heard first of all that he was not happy about the way that the trade.
I would
took
assume
out.
so.
Like, I think you hear all day that you're going to get traded, and then you get a call like half an hour before the actual trade saying, "Hey, you know what? That's not going to happen. We really, really want you here. Actually, we changed our mind. We'd love to have you here. Let's make this good." And you understand if you're Brogdon, where you're like, "Hey, maybe this isn't the right place for me anymore."
Totally. I mean, honestly, like beyond just reflecting, that's what I want to talk to you guys about now in terms of there are all these X factors of this deal. And I think you just hit on the most important one, like maybe most pressing one now, Rich, is like Brogdon. Like pretty much was traded for 12 hours essentially. And then wasn't traded, got dragged through the mud, like essentially like damaged goods with his like injury wise. So that like to add another layer of the hurt there. So like, what do the Celtics do with him? Can you mend fences enough with him right now? Like, and of course there's degrees. Of course he'll come back and play. He's not going to sit out or whatever and mope, but like, are you better off being like, yeah, listen, like you're our guy now. We just had too many. Can you go down that road with him? Or do you have to be like, listen, that is a potential long-term issue for us now for like cohesion, whatever on this team. We might be better off moving him anyway for payroll reasons, as Mike kind of alluded to as well, which they were trying to do in the first place. So like, do you try to get out ahead of that now and find, maybe a better ball handler like Mike was referring to? There's obviously some cheaper options in the market. Or do you swallow hard and knowing that his value is obviously lower right now after this episode and kind of try to reset and work the roster in other places heading into next season? Like, I don't know the answer to that. I'm about like publicly they're going to say we love Malcolm. He's going to be back, but like, internally, Rich, like they have to be being like you said, like considering like, ooh, do we need to, just make this move because we kind of dug ourselves into this hole right now?
But Pina, who else? When you mentioned like some of those other ball handlers, like preferably a little bit bigger, but either way, like who is that? I mean, obviously Patrick Beverley's name has been tossed around. I mean, that's a big move, like for chemistry and a whole lot of other reasons. But like, who else is out there? Like, Danny might want to get rid of Colin Sexton. Like, who else?
Yeah, I don't know
it's
about that.
Morris.
I love Monte Morris. I mean,
Ooh, yeah.
like Monte Morris, DeLon Wright.
Yes.
He would be a really good addition. Someone who can defend, size, handle the ball, etc. Like, I really like that. I do like Pat Bev, honestly. I was thinking about that earlier. If you can get him at the veterans minimum, I don't know if you can, but if you can, that's pretty enticing. Monte Morris is, I don't know how much they like it defensively, but again, I don't like, are you switching everything anymore? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, no,
you're
the whole scheme's gonna be different, it seems like.
yeah, it's like, I would assume they're gonna play a lot of well, I don't know. I've been going back in my head about, are they gonna play double bigs a lot this year, or if they're gonna really play if Porzingis is gonna play half his minutes at the 5, Tatum at the 4. I don't know. I would imagine that they have to play or would like to play. I guess Grant Williams factors into this too if they bring him back. But if you're double big, like, you're not going to be switching everything. So like the need to have defensive versatility goes down a little bit with the rim protection and the size and the length. So like Monte Morris would just be really great. And as a backup point guard, he'd be one of the best in the NBA. I don't think it would be that costly to get him off of Washington's hands. I don't know what the market is there if anyone else wants Monte Morris, but that's who I would really be targeting right now. Because like, I do think the passing thing is a little overblown, where it's like they lost their best passer. Now, how are they gonna move the ball? Like, I think like still pretty much everybody is above average who's going to be in the rotation as a passer, besides Jalen. Like, Jalen's kind of, and maybe you could say Brogdon too if he's still around. Like, I don't think he's like this like great playmaker, but I think Tatum's fine. The bigs can all pass and are all willing passers, including KP, as he showed last year. So I think that's a little bit of a overblown criticism, but they need another ball handler, I think, because I don't feel comfortable giving the ball to Jalen and Tatum, and it's not fair to them either to have them just run the show for 82 games, let alone in the playoffs.
You didn't like Jalen's handle? You didn't like Jalen's handle in the playoffs, Mike?
It was spotty. Spotty at times. I'm more like about his decision making than I am about the really sloppy ball handling, live ball turnovers. Like, when he shoots, sometimes I'm just like, why did you take that shot? Like,
sure, but it is weird that an NBA superstar has moments where he literally cannot dribble a basketball.
Is he a superstar?
I mean, maybe I'm using that. I mean, he's gonna get the super max.
I hope you're gonna. You can call him a superstar if you can give him $300 million.
Yeah,
but
right.
That's another conversation for.
It is.
Is Jaylen Brown going to be on the team this time next year?
Well, I think that's going to be dependent on what happens next season. If you win a championship, yes. If you don't win a championship, like, maybe, like, maybe not coin flip odds, but certainly, especially Porzingis. Like, are they gonna give Porzingis an extension before they see him on the floor right now for like $75 million?
Can I throw you a really funny idea that I've had? Let's say like KP is playing great. Let's say they don't give the extension. He's playing great. I don't know what the deadline is for an extension. What's the deadline to give him an extension? Is that before?
I think they can do it at any point during the. I'd have to double check. They can. I know it starts in the second week of July. I don't know if there's an end date of like when they have to do it by the start of the season or something like that. But I imagine it's a pretty
okay. So I have a like a little hypothetical that will never happen, mostly because the new CBA is just an absolute bear. But let's say KP's playing pretty well, and you're thinking about the extension or whatever. Like, I was just looking at Karl Anthony Towns' contract, which is like obviously a ton, but next year the salary is basically exactly what KP makes. And if you were to flip those two, I just like, again, it's not going to happen. You're getting a better player. A lot. I think Cat is still a lot better. And Cat as the third option. Granted, I understand the money, which is why this won't happen. But the Timberwolves, I think, would jump at that. I really do. If you just flipped it with no pick compensation going either way, they got to get off that and then see what they were with KP. Like, that's just something I've been thinking about, daydreaming about, whatever. Not going to happen, but I just wanted to say it.
And to your point, Mike, like they are very much positioning themselves with these moves on top of getting Porzingis. Like, you've got 2 firsts that you've got. So now you have all your future firsts plus an extra Golden State one that may or may not be intriguing for next year. And then a boatload of second round picks here. Like, these are not picks to use in the draft. These are picks to be like, how do we maximize our window in the next 2 years? And that's, I'm sure, the type of swings you're talking about. Like, those are not swings you can take right now. Those are swings you think about down the road, whether it's with Jalen or Porzingis or whoever. But like to your point, like I'd be shocked if they're done. And the question is, do they wait kind of during the season to kind of see what it all looks like and then try to make that final move, or try to make another decent sized swing now for a, you're not gonna get a star type player, but certainly there you have the assets to get, a starter level player to add to this rotation without really taking anything away outside of, considering whatever you think of Brogdon here. So I guess my question I have for you guys right now on this is like, if the question for next season is Brogdon or Grant and other stuff, like what direction do you go in as far as like affordability of like, is that an easy decision for you guys to make? Or is that a situation where, you would like to have the more sure thing of Brogdon and maybe get a cheaper piece to replace Grant? Because you're going to need obviously some more bigs to replace him behind this.
Brogdon does not feel like a short. Brogdon doesn't feel like a sure thing though. Just
no, you're right.
I mean, just physically, because it was his hand, but then his foot is an issue too, right?
That's what I've heard. I know Mike's may have heard that too. Like,
but anyways, so, yeah. So it just seems like but that and the bad blood over the trade, that seems to me, if you can find a way to, and I love Malcolm Brogdon, loved watching him play right up until the playoffs last year. Be sorry to see him
he was
go.
good before he got hurt.
Yeah, sure. Right. I was just talking about the end of the playoffs,
Sure.
Clouding my memory a little bit.
Yeah.
Did he impress you guys though in the playoffs? I feel like he was like fine, but he wasn't. I felt like as the crunch time fifth guy in the court, he never like impressed. Maybe like, I don't know. Maybe I don't know if you blame him for that, but I feel like it just wasn't never the right mix. Like where that group they struggled in that spots, and he didn't necessarily help things. Not that he was the cause of it.
I'm not looking at his numbers right now, but I thought he was fine, and if not good. And I think they would have beaten the Heat if he never hurt himself. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I do think that, to answer your initial question, like, was it Brogdon or Grant and stuff?
Grant and other stuff, yeah. Conceivably, like, because you'd have some, you could probably use the taxpayer mid-level $5 million, or if you trade Brogdon for someone like Morris, then you can use the savings to sign Grant. So you get essentially like 2 players for Brogdon's salary.
Yeah, I'd have to know what you could get for Brogdon or who would be interested in him right now. I'm not ruling out a trade there, kind of regardless of what they do with Grant. But what do you guys think happens with Grant? Because that's like kind of a really pressing issue. B-Rob, I read your piece with like the 17 possibilities, all the teams that could have interest. I think he fits basically anywhere in the whole league. I do think, can you answer something for me? Like, why are people that I'm just seeing like Celtics, mostly Celtics Twitter, but like, why do people think that a sign and trade is like likely here?
Yeah, I think people think like, oh, you're not going to let Grant walk away for nothing. That's just that mentality.
Well,
but
you might have to.
But right, exactly. But that's if it comes down to like, well, we don't want to pay. And it's like, I don't know, are you going to let him walk away for like $12 million a year? Like, you probably shouldn't do that, because that should be a contract that you can trade if you need to next year. So that'd be essentially being like, yeah, you can't pay him long term, but like, you're not going to be able to replace him for the year, so why not like keep him and then you can move him next year? Like, I don't know, that I guess that's but obviously if that price point goes up to 15 or 16 million, then that becomes like, that's a dicier scenario where it's like, all right, you might have to sweeten the pot to get some team to take that, and you already have a couple other contracts, you might be in the same boat.
And even if you sign and trade, there's like a weird assumption that you're even going to get anything back of value beyond like a couple more second round picks, right?
Yeah,
like
totally.
You're not going to get someone for Grant that you can go and plug in and I say play Grant Williams minutes, which was 0 a lot of nights during the season, but like someone I'm ready to roll with Grant. I would be very happy to run it back with him one more year.
I love him. You guys know I love him.
When he finally got a chance in that Miami series, he was a huge part of even making it a series.
Should have been playing the whole playoffs, like
the whole year.
Yeah,
it didn't make. And I don't know if it like what was it. Was it just random that it had coincided with those 2 missed foul shots in Cleveland that he kind of fell off, or was it more than that?
No, I think that was random that it kind of coincided with that. I want to say that's like he got benched right before that, honestly, and that might have been when he first came back. It was something around those lines, but you're right? Like, I mean, this was one of the things where it's like, and we haven't even talked about the coaching part of this and the changes to the staff, and obviously Sam Cassell and Charles Lee and Gozai's coming aboard, but like a lot of things that happened last year playing wise didn't make a lot of sense from rotation standpoints, from whether it was Grant Williams or, Derek White being benched in plenty of crunch time. So if that stuff's resolved and knowing what I'm with you guys 100%, like you have to have a very good replacement ready to go if you're going to let Grant Williams walk in this situation. And I don't see an easy path to doing that unless you're like using this Brogdon deal as a way to get, another big there. But even then it's like, why wouldn't you use that for something else and just keep Grant? I don't know. Like, it doesn't make much sense to me not to otherwise.
Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount of bonus bets and up to $200. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to be, hitting the first home run. All in the app that's safe, secure, it's super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/Boston and get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/Boston. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball.
So I have a free agency prediction. You reminded me of it, B-Rob, when you were talking about the assistant coaches, because then I was thinking about how they also hired Emil Jefferson. Another move that's like, oh, Jason, this is your team. Sorry, Jalen. Jason, this is your team. Can't take credit for this, but Javonte Green back to the Celtics.
Ooh. Never should have left. Never should have dumped him 2 years ago for tax purposes. Has actually played better in the Bulls. I like that a lot, Rich.
Feel free to run with that one. Yeah.
That's because they honestly need that type of guy anyway. You need I feel like the springy wing. Like that's kind of something they didn't really have off the bench at all last year.
Sam Hauser, excuse me.
I mean, sorry, apologies to Sam.
What about Sam next year? We can assume maybe he'll be ready for a little bit more. Like, because the numbers say he's not horrible on defense, right?
Yeah, he held up pretty well based on the metrics.
Yeah, like they tried to attack him, and like I'm sure they were successful at times, but it wasn't like consistently like this is the guy we can attack and beat you with. And the shot came and went from time to time, but you would think maybe if he had a little bit more consistent run, might be more consistent with his shot. I don't know. Where do you? And maybe this depends on Grant as well. Like how many minutes might open up. Like if Grant's not there, like could you envision a situation where Hauser's playing 20 minutes a game?
You certainly have to, Mike. I feel like if you're letting Grant walk, that is a huge bet on Sam Hauser as saying, okay, we think he can play the, guard fours or guard threes off the bench like regularly, which is, that remains to be seen, I guess.
Yeah. I was just looking up Sam's splits. He averaged 16 minutes a game in 80 games last season.
wow.
That's like way more than I thought.
Yeah, much more than I thought.
Finished over 40%, 41.8% behind the 3-point line.
Wow.
Did go through lulls, to your point, Rich, for sure. And I do wonder, like, with shooters, what's in your head when it comes to how is making and missing this shot going to affect my playing time
Right.
going forward, which you never want.
Like Pritch was in that spot for a good portion of this year, I thought too.
Right. I mean, I like Hauser. I think he's like a rotational NBA player, and you can't have enough shooting, and he complements everybody around him. I don't know, like, definitely not the same defender as Grant Williams, for sure. There's a difference between holding up because you're getting picked on and like being a stopper, or being someone who you can throw on Giannis and throw on whoever, just name a guy, and Grant Williams can defend him capably. So yeah, I don't know. Like, I would be fine. I think the Celtics would be okay if he was getting more minutes next year. I think he's pretty good. And like, if he was an unrestricted free agent this summer, I think teams would seriously consider throwing, I don't know how much, but way more than the veterans minimum at him, for sure.
One name that came up around him a lot last season because of his history with the Celtics was Strus, right? And I know at times some people within the organization had maybe argued that he could be better than Strus. He's not as athletic, I don't think, as Strus, or can he be?
I think Hauser dunked it last year. Didn't he have some dunks?
He's 6'7", right?
6'8", yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if that speaks to his athleticism as opposed to having a long week. But yeah, no, I think it's a fair assessment. It sounds like Strus. I think I was reading Jake Fisher on Yahoo today, and they're talking about Strus getting more than mid-level money from one of these teams with cap space. So yeah, I would think that part of the equation. Like, Strus was never a great defender, but I think certainly like he's got more agility, et cetera, than Hauser.
3 dunks.
Yeah,
three dunks for
3
Hauser.
dunks. So look out.
Year.
But that doubles this year. Yeah, so I guess that's the question now. If it's like, with guys, when you have Hauser, when you have the Pritchards of the world, like coming off the bench right now, like lower cost options, is the front office, is it's being like, all right, let's kind of see what we have with those guys in this new, revamped rotation here, and then make tweaks as we go? Or do we say, hey, yeah, like we have 38-year-old Al Horford and 2 guys in Porzingis and Robb who average probably 45 games a season over the course of their career. Like, we probably want to have better insurance there than like Luke Cornett or something like that. Like, just in terms of like taking that onus off of them in the day-to-day, if they are going to play double bigs, which I expected. Like, you don't make this trade unless you like say like you want to play like what 60%, 70% of these games is double bigs now. I feel like when you have, lineups like when you have these guys in place and potentially one more big, right? Is that a too big of a leap, or is that
What's the starting 5? What's the starting 5?
I have no idea. Like White, Jalen, Tatum, and then your guess is good as mine for which 2 of those last 3. Porzingis, obviously, but then like, is he Porzingis the 4, Porzingis the 5? Like, what's the?
But that's 4. We can say Derek.
Yeah, Porzingis obviously is the fair.
And Porzingis,
yeah, so
those
is
are
it
4
Al or Robb?
starters.
I would personally start Robb. Personally,
yeah,
that's what I would do. And I just think Horford, Rich's longtime favorite player. I just think like a lot of the thought process behind getting bigger and adding KP and just really feeling an impetus to do it, clearly because they gave up Marcus Smart when they initially thought that they would only have to give up Malcolm Brogdon, is we have to preserve Al Horford. I think that is a huge component here, and he's integral to them in the postseason. him being healthy is very, very important. Him being able to play big minutes is very important for a couple straight months there. So I think you should bring him off the bench. And honestly,
Mike,
like
are you saying Mike playing Al 31 minutes a year was not a good idea last year? 31 minutes a game, excuse me.
had to do what you had to do, I guess. I don't know. I just can't see him playing back to backs for sure again. I can't see him. I think there will be scheduled rests for him this year quite a bit, along with KP, along with Rob. I think there'll be a little bit of a juggling act there.
There'll be scheduled rests and there'll be unscheduled rests as well. You can imagine with everybody.
100%.
Like how many games, like we can talk about this, like how many games out of 82 will they have all three of them available? Like if it's 45, that's a win.
I'd be like 20.
45. Oh,
20.
that would be that'd be Christmas.
So you do that, then you get to the playoffs and you're like, all right, now let's start like figuring this out.
Right. Well, that's a question. Like
that's the NBA.
What's the line?
Every team goes through that though. I mean, look at the Heat. Like they had the Heat were playing lineups that they'd never played before. They had a starting lineup that they basically never played before, and they go on this ridiculous run. So like, I don't know. I feel like every team kind of goes through that, but.
And this is what it comes down to, like within that, though. Hold on, I'm getting a spam call. But within that, it comes down to, we can talk about this, everything on the margins. For all the Heat went through, when Jimmy Butler came out and he was a top 5 player in the NBA, that was enough to get them to the finals. For all we're talking about, if Jason Tatum is going to be a top 3 player, that makes this a lot easier. If it's the same shit from last playoffs where he's disappearing for halves, for games, it doesn't matter. Is that fair to say? Unless he is in the mold of Jokic and Giannis when they won that year, where you are bringing it every game. I know Giannis was hurt for a little bit of their championship run, but like, unless you can count on your best player to be the best player every single game, like we're kind of just talking in circles.
No, I mean, it's absolutely right. I mean,
And he got injured in Game 7, so that's like,
yeah, you give a little bit of asset. But I think your bigger point stands rich in the sense of like, this move is a bet by Brad Stevens that Porzingis and the other stuff they got for Smart is going to make life easier for Tatum and make Tatum better than Marcus Smart did or has, as this team is currently composed. Whether that is the right bet, like that remains to be seen. I think there are some questions about fit, certainly defensively, with this group that they'll have to tackle this year. But I don't know, Mike, I feel like they see the offensive issues were the biggest issues this team had against the Heat again last year in the playoffs. And it's been like that time and time again with this core group. And so this was the last chance to really shake things up around with the supporting cast before bigger decisions had to be made, i.e. like the Jalen Jason situation. And so Brogdon was the first choice to do that. Once that kind of fell through, then like it went to Smart, and I don't know, like we'll see what it does, but I think you're right. Like this, I think this comes down to like, how can we make life easier for Tatum and Brown, et cetera, in those spots, and we'll see if Porzingis does that, I guess.
I think he will. I mean, in the ways that a 7-3 pick and roll partner who will space the floor. I mean, the way I look at one element of just essentially swapping Smart for KP is like, you're going from an iffy, I think better than other people think, but an iffy 3-point shooter to someone who, if you just watch some of the threes that KP hit last year, like just ridiculous stuff. Like I watched a ton of his footage because I had all day to research it because I thought that the trade was going to be for Brogdon at like noon. Just like a different type of offensive threat, just on a completely different level.
But when you say ridiculous threes, like what specifically? Like what kind of threes?
Like contested, like shooting over
yeah, like hand in the face. He's got the step back down. He's got, I think, a tighter handle than a lot of people think. He's not like KD as the 7-footer with the crossover, but he can cross you up. And also just like as a pick and is like, I think one of the things that he was so good at last year with Brad Beal was like, when you switch the pick and roll, which he had trouble with earlier in his career, post meniscus injury and post ACL a little bit. But like you switch it, and then like last year, he would roll into a post up, get really good position, seal his man, and then from 8 feet and in, he was like money, hitting really tough shots. Also, like they haven't really had that type of threat. Like I understand, like Smart on the small pick and rolls, he can make plays out of it, but he wasn't like that type of scoring threat. So I just think he adds a different type of dimension to your offense. And yeah, but it changes how you're going to play also. But I do think that I think Tatum is a much better playmaker and passer than we've seen. And like the season of him averaging like 7.5 assists, I think is totally on the table for him. I mean, it's not like out of the question for me.
Was he at 6 last? He had to be close to 6 last year, right? I can check it out. But
I want to say he's never gotten above 5, but that's just me kind of blanching at it.
But what you described, like, you know, the 3-pointers are great.
4.6 last year, career high.
Oh, no shit. But that sort of closer to the hoop attack and that array that Kristaps can score with, like when you have those stretches where the Celtics are dying by the 3, right? That is to have a reliable weapon to go to inside the arc. It's just invaluable for this team.
Yeah, it's a different type of threat for sure.
Because Al, especially at this point in his career, you could see in the playoffs, like against those zones and stuff, like he goes to the free throw line like once every 3 games. He's just not looking to finish in those spots where, like, as you point out, Mike, in the video, like Porzingis seems to thrive in those spots, or like those in between areas where he can get, you know, kind of take advantage of that. And now this is the first time in his career he's gonna be the number 3 option, and he's been playing with 2 arguably better offensive players. So the quality of the looks he should be getting in this offense should be far superior than anything he's seen in his career.
Yeah, real quick. So like Second Spectrum has this stat, quantified shot making, which is essentially like how lucky you were or unlucky you were on the types of shots that you take. And last year, KP was one of the luckiest shooters in the whole league. But he only shot 29% on uncontested 3-pointers. So what I think Brad sees is a guy who, like, they have access to those numbers, I'm sure. And like, I think that the metric assigning luck to him, I think the Celtics hope and believe that is who KP is when healthy. And I think that the uncontested 3 number will likely go up. Like, I think that was an aberration because he finished 38% last season, or 37 point whatever. So he's going to get a lot more uncontested 3-pointers. The pick and pop game will be really tough to stop, I think. And yeah, like the true shooting that he had could go down a little bit, or could stay the same, could go up. Like I think KP is like a super talented offensive player, and like the ceiling here for him in Boston is like another all-star game. I think that is totally on the table for him in a winning environment.
Rob, how many playoff series has Kristaps won in his career?
I want to say 0.
That'd be a 0.
That would be a 0.
0-2, is that correct?
Yeah, 2 years.
He was nasty in the bubble. No,
he didn't play in New York. It was all Dallas.
In the bubble, he got it hurt after game 2 against the Clippers, and he was like unguardable in that series. Incredible. And that was tough. That was the meniscus injury, and he was like never the same in a Mavericks uniform after that. And also him and Luka didn't like each other. But
what's that about?
What's the chemistry with him? Like,
I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think that was a different stage of his career for sure. I would be going off of, and Brad's talked about this a little bit, but I would be going off of like, you know, how he looked last season in the Wizards. Like, not really, like the ego didn't seem to be there at all. And so you had like him for the most part being healthy, for the most part, accepting his role in the hierarchy behind Brad Beal when they played together. And like, he was pretty quiet there and good. Like, I think this is like a lot better than a lot of people, because not a lot of people watch the Wizards. But yeah, I don't foresee him in a quote, like maybe it's a contract year, maybe it's not, but I don't foresee him like coming in and being like, I'm the best player on this team. Like, I just don't. I don't think that's necessarily on the cards. Like, when he was traded from New York, it was more, early 20s. KD's calling him the unicorn, gets the full max from Mark Cuban, like, at knowing that he just tore his ACL. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just a completely different time in his career, I think.
Yeah, the timing. I mean, he'll be coming in, and that's why I think it's going to be fascinating too, Rich. Like, what this extension thing? Like, clearly he wants the extension. His camp wants an extension. If you do that extension before you see anything, does that make sense for the Celtics? Just you keep him happy, you locked in, you maybe maximize your, or is it like, ooh, if this somehow it's just like a clunky fit or whatever, and then puts you in an even tougher spot with Jalen's contract next offseason? Like, that is can be an interesting push and pull there for the front office to manage, I feel like.
Yeah, I tend to. If I had a guess, I think he's going to get it. But
Seems like it.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Okay, because you can say you got to wait to see something, but like like Mike said, like, the guy's got a pretty decent track record. Anything can happen once he's, like, I guess, with the Jays, but like, I don't know. You just never know. Like, with all these deals, if he stays healthy, it's going to be awesome, right? Like with Robb, as long as he's healthy, it's a steal. As long as if he's missing 3/4 of the games, then it was a mistake. There's so many deals like that in the league where you can say that. And Kristaps is one of those dudes, a 7-3, with the injury history that he has. You just never know. It's always going to be a risk, and at some point, you just got to get lucky and hope that the guy doesn't get injured.
Maybe wait till after the World Cup to sign the deal, man. I don't know. He's supposed to be playing for.
Is he playing for Latvia?
I think he's playing for Latvia.
Oh, that's great. That's just what you want.
One bit.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap up on this then. Let's do quick round of predictions. Grant back. Is Brogdon back? What's our gut says?
I don't think that Grant is back. I think a team will offer a cap space team will offer more than the mid-level for him, and it could be a 2-year deal. I think we'll see a lot of those, frankly. I think teams are going to be petrified of long-term money. And I could see the Spurs, I could see the Pacers, I could see, reuniting with Ime Udoka in Houston, if they swing and miss on everybody. Like, again, I just think he fits on rebuilding teams. I think he fits on teams that are good, that want to be great, and I think he fits on championship contenders. So he's kind of an ideal role player right now in the league, and he should get paid, frankly, more than the mid-level.
An ideal role player at a less than ideal time to be trying to cash in, right? Or you can get decent money for those 2 years, just wouldn't be as long of a contract.
I think that since he's restricted, that could work to his benefit. Like, teams know that teams know Boston's salary situation. They know that all things are pointing towards Jalen getting what he's going to get next year. That kicks in the following year, I know. But like, I could see a 2-year, I don't know. It's like 50 crazy. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, what would it take to get him, like, to have Boston be afraid of that second year? I think that could work to his benefit for sure.
And that's why I don't know. That's why I kind of like you move off of Brogdon here if you can at all, just so you take away that part of the negotiation for Grant, where it's like you're just petrified of that long-term money. If you get Brogdon off the books for an expiring or something cheaper that also helps you next year, then you can still keep Grant and not like lose sleep over it. Whether or not they'll find that deal, whether or not that deal's out there, I guess we'll find out in the next week. But
Yeah,
that's I guess easier said than done at this point with Brogdon's situation.
and B-Rob, like you alluded to, like, and I've heard it a few other places too, that like this is the year to like not one last run, but like this is the year to really go for it before you got to make some bigger decisions. And if that's the case, like having lost Marcus, like to keep some consistency, some, with the guys that have been there, who have been there through this run, who played in the finals, who were there this past year for all that. And Grant's a big part of that. And even if you're not going to rely on him all the time in the regular season, I think he's a guy that when it comes to the playoffs, be happy to have him on board. So
100%.
I don't know what my prediction is. My prediction is that I would like for him to be back.
And I'm kind of feel like I don't think he's back unless they move Brogdon. And I think that's a coin flip at this point.
And Brogdon is like the opposite of what you said, Pina. Like Grant can fit anywhere. Like you would think that only a contender is paying that kind of money for this version of Brogdon, right?
Yeah, or I don't think Boston would do it, but there are teams out there that I think are looking to take on bad salary. That's a huge benefit right now of having cap space. So what are you going to give us with your bad salary?
Second round pick and Rudy Gay.
Yeah.
John
Exactly,
Collins,
man. Dude, that's like literally, that's exactly right. Like, I think fans are not really coming to terms with how the new CBA is impacting the value of money on the open market and contracts that were signed. I don't know. Like, I mean, like even someone like DeJounte Murray, it's like, are the Hawks really are they pumped about paying him? I don't think so. Like, they're afraid of the luxury tax. So let alone going across the apron, and they're going to have to extend a Kongwu. So like, yeah, like I just think like there's a lot of teams out there where you could see some shuffling going on. And Malcolm Brogdon is at least on a fixed number. And I think teams out there would be willing to take him on with like a protected first or something attached to it. It could happen, could not. I'm just, just what I think.
Totally. I think that's the one team that probably would have taken him without giving up something like that went out the door with the Clippers. Like, that's why I saw that package. I was like, wow, they're going to net, like, they're going to have the Clippers give a first for Brogdon. And then the Clippers were like, oh, wait, why are we doing this? Or physical, whatever they want to say they didn't do it for. But now Celtics back to square one for that front. Well, guys, this was a lot of fun. I miss you both very much.
Yeah, man.
We'll maybe recircle the wagons here when the dust settles in the next few weeks. See what how wrong we were about all our predictions and everything else. But Mike,
KP for Cat. You heard it here first.
KP, yeah. Put that down. I agree with that one.
I love that.
Mike's 3 steps ahead.
Yeah, that's just way too expensive. But yeah,
Big great stuff.
Devontae Green to the Celtics.
Devontae Green to Celtics. Put that one in the wire too. I think higher chance of that one happening. Yeah, we might have to flow that one out of existence because that just makes too much sense.
And if it does happen, I have to give credit to my friend Brendan for
right.
mentioning it to me. I can't take full credit, but it's a great idea.
It's a great idea.
Thanks, Brendan.
All right. Make sure you check these guys out. Make sure, I think Rich might have something special in store. Hold up, put that under his hat for now, but maybe we'll have an update on that next time.
Hopefully, yeah. Fingers crossed. We'll see.
And Mike will obviously be cranking out great stuff at the Ringer all off season long here, as well as on their podcast network. So thanks again, guys, and we'll talk to everyone later this week.
Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston and get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets.